What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Evan King. We back with another one, of course. Oh, it's Gabos overnight, man. What is it? Late night edition to the show. Appreciate you guys for rocking out with your boy. Actually, I'm just not coming in from the crib. I had a long ass day, and I decided, like, you know what? I could go to sleep, or I could record and keep providing you guys more content. This one is kind of interesting, man. We got Do White People Experience Racism by Jubilee. Man, I love social experiments. I love deep-rooted conversations. I'm always trying to learn some shit. And when I'm not trying to learn, I'm trying to inform and as well as share an opinion. So on my channel, I want to learn. I want to laugh. I want to do all types of shit. And this shit always gravitates to me. Now, if you're going to ask me, a black brother born and raised in America, United States, you know what I'm saying? Can white people experience racism? No. If you ask me, not in its truest depth. You know what I'm saying? Can they experience, like, what's that shit, being like judged and shit like that? I think that applies. Black people, we have a way of looking at white people like, yo, y'all will never understand what we go through. Even if, like, bro, even if we sat down in a circle and had a deep-rooted conversation about the experience of being a black male in America compared to being a white male in America, no matter what we tell these people, it's like they could understand. I don't know, like let's say like 30% of them will understand, 30% of them will be indifferent, 30% of them won't care, right? They could, even the ones that could understand what life is being black in this country, they still don't know how it feels because they'll never experience it. No matter what you tell them, how you feel, this, that, and the third, they just can't see it because they not us. You know what I'm saying? And I like this shit, man. Like, they want to have a deep-rooted conversation about this shit. I want to see what they're going to say. This is one of my longer episodes. If you're going to rock out all the way, I appreciate you nonetheless. If not, it's all good. Like, I'm here for the people. You know what I'm saying? You decided to click, I decided to show. So let's get to it.
Two things can be true. You can have had a very hard time. Privilege is not just limited to white people, but to say white privilege doesn't exist from a historical context, to me, is respectfully absurd.
Okay, all right. So it looked like they got them seated in a panel. Like, was it like?
Step forward if you agree with the prompt.
Okay. And look at this setup, bro. You got the three white people, probably conservatives, biracial. You know, they live on the fence, obviously. Biracial, if you don't know. Black parents, white parents. Black mom, white dad, black mom. Biracial, you get it. And then you got just black. No! All right.
White people also experience racism.
This could be triggering.
I think racism is definitely not a one race against the other. It goes all ways. It's not, it doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian, it doesn't matter. You could experience racism no matter what color your skin is.
Agreed.
I think that people have a propensity to kind of have an aversion towards what's different from them. I've been called a cracker before. I've been told I was going to get beaten up because I was white. I would argue that on a systemic level, white people don't experience racism the same way a lot of other races experience racism. But I would say on an individual level, any group is capable of being racist towards another group as well.
So the argument against this position frequently is that racism is a system, not a sentiment in the United States. And I agree with that really strongly, but at the same time I'm Jewish and racially white and have definitely experienced racism, discrimination. The paradox is that most of that racism is coming from white people or European society, white nationalism, etc. that's directed at Jews. So I'm Dane and I'm Jewish. I'm proud of being Jewish and being connected to an ancient religion and culture, but I'm not proud to be white, I would say. White privilege, I think, is an aspect of American society. I think it exists. When I go to a job interview, I don't have to worry about my hairstyle or the way I normally speak.
That's a fact.
Or my name. And that's something perhaps a black person would have to worry about.
Ain't no perhaps. Like, I'll let you know right now. Like, there were stories about black people not being able to get a job if they weren't willing to cut their hair. This one black kid who was like 17, he was accepted into like a 1D college or whatever the term is. And they dead ass told him if he didn't cut his dreads, he wouldn't get a scholarship. Like, I forgot what story this was, but this happened a couple of years back. Not even too long ago. But he's absolutely right. You know, white people are allowed to be themselves and they're quite comfortable being themselves in public settings. But black people, especially when they're looking for employment opportunities, but black people, I ain't gonna front, bro. It's like we always gotta conform to an image that's not really us. But you know, we have to pretend to be this image just to be viewed as, I don't know, bro, like good enough.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
Okay, so if you agreed, sit
I
down.
just want to say that I want to validate everyone's individual experiences. I do also believe that white people experience bias, prejudice, but the reason I
Prejudice was the
did
word I was
not
looking for.
step forward is because, by definition, racism is tied to
hate.
power and economics. You talked about systemic discrimination. I don't feel white people experience racism by definition and by actual concept.
That's a fact. That's a fact, bro. That's a fact.
What is
not
the
in this
definition
country?
of racism, and who wrote that definition?
In the late 1500s, early 1600s, there was slavery. They started bringing over slaves, but there was really no concept
AC is
of
booming.
classifying people in terms of race. It's just we're bringing these people over and they're slaves. What ended up happening is some of the slave owners who were white started mixing with some of the slaves. And now here you have these black people that look like the people that are owning things. So they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. The theory of race was formed to classify a group of people who would be lesser than and have less economic power, and this would be imposed against them for hundreds of years. So that has not been the white experience in this country, but it does not invalidate the things that white people experience. It's just not racism.
It's just not the same. Like, so I get what she's basically saying, and you know, she's saying it in a beautifully articulated way. It's like, you can't, and I'm black, so I know my people. I get it from my world. It's kind of like the discussion we have when we it's like men and women are equal, but we're not the same. You know what I'm saying? White and black people, we're equal. Like, you know, we bleed if you cut us. You know what I'm saying? We have organs, we have eyes, we have hair. Like, we're human. So that makes us, you know, equal. But we're not the same. And believe it's just so crazy. But the smallest detail of something that you just simply can't control. Hey, listen, I ain't asked to be black. I'm pretty sure some of the viewers watching this didn't ask to be Hispanic, didn't ask to be Jewish, didn't ask to be white, didn't ask to be Indian or whatever. We didn't ask for our genetic DNAs. It was just the lottery, right? Like, lack of a better choice. It's the lottery. We didn't ask to be how we look. We just are, you know? And although we are equal, we are not the same because our worlds are completely different. And it's all because of the pigmentation on our fucking skin, bro. So when a white person tells me that they've experienced racism in this country, blasphemy. Cut the shit, bro. Racism, and no one has touched on it yet. I don't know if they're gonna touch on it later on, but it's fueled by hatred. It's fueled by, like what she said, control and power. You know, and black people understand that, especially when in the job setting in corporate America, when we're applying for jobs, we understand that we're giving up the little power that we have. We're giving it up for the white man. We're giving it up for Uncle Sam. You know what I'm saying? Because we have to conform ourselves to be something that we're not, just to be good enough. And that's just something that white people don't have to deal with.
By definition, is it prejudice? Is it bias? Is it wrong? Yes.
Mine is simple. If one person treats another person differently because of the color of their skin, to me, that's racism. I will tell you that I was stopped by the police plenty of times when I was a young man. And I will also tell you that I then decided to spend 35 years as a policeman. I'll tell you that I stopped lots of kids coming home from school. Depending on who it was that I stopped, the first thing out of their mouth would be, "You only stopped me because I'm black." And I would say, "You're driving a sports car with a back window that's this big. I can't see who's driving, and I stopped you because you're doing 95 and a 55. I had no idea who I was pulling over until I stopped you."
True.
Now, if I treat you differently because you're black, then I'm a racist. But if I write you the same ticket that I was going to write you before I knew who was behind the wheel, I'm not.
All that is stemmed from being conditioned in this country. Black people were triggered, and our trauma goes back years, way before this show, this platform, way before you and I even existed. Our trauma goes back hundreds of fucking years. So a lot of things that our ancestors were dealing with, we're sort of still dealing with it today. So when an individual says, "Yo, you're only picking on me because we're black," it's because we constantly feel targeted. But that comes from traditional trauma. That's trauma passed down from generation to generation. We feel targeted. You know what I'm saying? Because we can tell the difference between being black and seeing what white privilege looks like. So whenever something happens to an African American, we're always gonna feel triggered, even if we're in the wrong. And I'm not saying that's right, because you do have a lot of knuckleheads. I'm not gonna sit here and play the victim violin for my people. Some people are just asking for it, and then they want to pull out the race card. That ain't cool. But nonetheless, that's just my explanation for how I want white people to understand why we move like that. Why do we always feel victimized? It's because we've been targeted for over 200 years.
So I'm glad you used that example, and I want to commend you for your service for our country. But I do want to say,
But there's also
because I've
but.
actually taught classes for the LAPD and for their cadets about these issues.
Oh,
But
Shorty
what I
came with
can
the
say,
credentials.
this is a statistic, and which is also a fact, is that 60% of our prison population is African American.
Different issue.
Yes, but let me finish, please. Is African.
Hold on, sweetheart. 32% of the U.S. population is represented by African Americans and Hispanics, compared to 56% of the U.S. incarcerated population being represented by African American and Hispanics. African Americans are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of whites. It's a pivotal line. African Americans are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of whites, and there are 3 times as many white people as there are blacks. Do the math.
American males, right? When you go into a system and you are kept in that system and you're cycled through probation and there is a systematic sequence of oppression, that's not happening to white males. So it's bigger than just the stop itself. It's the system. My name is Sierra. I'm an actor, a speaker, and a human rights activist. I'm very proud to be African American. to be Black.
She came here tooled up. She's ready.
Challenges that come with
She's ready.
being Black, also being a Black woman, are very real. I'm at a place in my life where I'm acknowledging these things are real. Discrimination is real. The systematic oppression of Black people is very real. But I will succeed in spite of that.
The police force is foundationally racist.
Everybody grab a seat, bro. Everybody. We should be playing massive musical chairs in this bitch.
I want to start off by saying I don't think that every cop out there today is racist.
Same.
I don't think
I
so
think
neither.
there are a lot of them who are really doing good work. What I know from the establishment of the policing in the United States, that is directly from the slave catchers who were hired to catch runaway slaves and bring them back home.
Yeah, I agree that all cops aren't racist. I had plenty of interactions with police that were fine, but I was told by a former police officer who was, a cop who decided he didn't want to do that anymore, that, the training is pretty much specialized for only colored people, especially Black people. That
You hear that shit, bro? The training is specifically specialized for colored people. The police training in this country.
if you're around them, they're the most dangerous, so you have to act in certain situations or react in certain situations.
It's crazy,
I think
bro.
I just really want to emphasize that I really think that there are some officers who are white that don't even believe that they're doing anything that may be racially motivated because they're simply doing what they were taught to do.
Those are the worst types. The ones that don't even know they're racist are the worst types, bro. Because everything in their mind seems like it's the right thing to do because they're not, lack of a better term, they're not woke enough. Those are the worst types. Like, you don't even, I can't even begin to have a discussion if you don't even know you're racist. You know what I'm saying? This shit is crazy.
Hello, my name is Nia, and I am Black. I'm proud of my race because when I look back historically at what people of my heritage have gone through and to see where we are now, it's remarkable, and it definitely pushes me to continue to be resilient and innovative as they were.
This is going to get into a hot button topic, but I will tell you that, when I watched the horrible video of George Floyd, I will tell you that I can justify many of the things that happened, but I cannot justify 9 minutes on his neck or back. But what I can also tell you is I, as a policeman, and this is my personal opinion only too, the officer who was on him for 9 minutes, he probably spent too much time in the same neighborhood dealing with the same problems over and over again that he became jaded.
Isn't that what being a police officer is?
There's no justification for that. I think I get what he's trying to touch on, and it's just it's kind of like the buildup. Like, you know, being a police officer is one of the most stressful positions in this country. You know what I'm saying? Like, your life is constantly on the line. You don't know when it's gonna be your final days. You don't know if this speeding ticket is gonna turn into, you know, a hit and run, or a guy pulls out a gun on you. Like, you just really don't know. But in that circumstance, there's no justification. You know what I'm saying? There's no justification for the 9 minutes he spent on George Floyd's neck when the man was pleading for his life. Jaded is being kind. You know, the man was merciless. You know, like when you go and you're ignoring a man begging for his life for 9 minutes until he's no longer breathing, and then you still apply pressure 5 minutes after he's lost his conscience. There's no justification for it, man. It's monstrosity. You're inhumane. You're an animal.
It's a social service job.
And you're assigned to that district or that community.
But I think you need to move around so that you get to see other things. You don't become that jaded.
The police, no matter what your race is, you know, we have to be integrated all together with the community. And it doesn't have to be community policing, but we all have to understand each other more. I think cultural competency would be very helpful. Like, that's my issue. Whether or not the foundations of the police force was or still was racist, now we can change that, but it starts with cops. Like, at the end of the day, it's the bad police officers that are our issue. Not all police officers, but
Yo, bro. Nobody's willing to touch on it because I think, like, they're touching on it, but they're not going deep enough for me. Follow me here. When you're watching a football game, right? And a referee throws a flag, and it's like an egregious what's the word I'm looking for? Controversy, right? That's the word. Thank you. And it's a controversial flag where it's just like, everybody's like, yo, how could you throw that flag? You're a cheater. You're a bum ass ref. Fire the ref. And everybody starts throwing, shade at the refs and death threats at the refs. People got to understand it's bigger than the refs. The refs are simply doing their job based off the system that was created for them to work under. I say that to say this. Are there racist cops out there? Yes, there are. Are all cops racist? No, they're not. But the system is what allows these cops to operate like this. It's not the cop. It's the system. You understand what I'm saying? And I feel like this conversation is scratching the surface to what the actual problem is, but it's not in the plant. It's in the soil. You know what I'm saying? It's not the ref. When you see a ref throw a flag against your favorite team and you're booing and you're calling them crazy for... No, it's the system that even created the scenario that this is a penalty. You know what I'm saying? The problem is, in our system, there's not enough penalties for our police officers. So it's not the cops, bro.
But the bad police officers, we need to vet them out, and the good police officers, we need to, encourage them to be amongst the community.
How do we vet them out?
By making the police unions accountable, because I feel like that demographic of officers, they're actually making things a lot worse for the other officers that are actually just trying to do their job. I think that we need to get some type of real accountability. That I don't think the police should be policing themselves. So when those cops that aren't upholding their oath, they can be properly removed instead of getting all of these passes.
The bad police officers, I hate the term like the bad apple. It's like, no, you're a faulty grenade. Like, you're ruining your whole department reputation. I feel like I was held up to higher standards working at Whole Foods sometimes. I got 3 chances out, but like Derek had so many.
17 reports before
17
George Floyd.
reports. It's like, get him out of there. What are you guys doing?
Do you think police officers, and I
You're
genuinely
crazy,
agree,
bro.
do you think they should get paid more?
I think police officers should get paid more. I also think police officers should do less. Why do I get sent to all of the mental health cases? Why do I get sent to all of these things? Now, I'll tell you why I get sent to them, is because we'll stop sending the police there, and then something horrible and tragic is going to happen, and they're going to say, why didn't we have a cop there?
Do you think we need to have different divisions?
Like, yo, bro, white dude over here, yo, he's spitting some shit, bro. He's spitting some shit. Like, and I don't want none of my pro-black people in here, like, castricizing this guy like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, I'm black here, but I'm also objective. I love hearing other sides, and sometimes you just gotta listen to people. He's talking some real shit. Half the time, like, yo, bro, if you have a cousin that done lost his mind, or he had like mental issues his entire life, and he's having a mental breakdown, he grabs a knife. He's not really violent, but he's just acting sporadically. You know, what options do we have in order for to get him help? Like, we call 911 because we want him sedated, we want him taken care of. But how many times have you heard stories that the cops pull up, see the knife, bop, 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 you know what I'm saying, and take him out? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's always been one of those situations where we question, like, yo, bro, why do we not have enough assistance for every case? Why do we need police officers to handle certain disputes that don't require policing? You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's above a dude's pay grade, bro. And you never know. Some of these cops be having bad days, and this is just that moment that just set them off. And they have everything. Oh, okay, he had a knife. That's all it takes, bro. Half the time, it ain't even a knife. Half the time, it's a hot comb. You know what I mean? All they need to do is think that it looked like one. And that's enough to take a whole life, bro. Shit crazy.
My name is Jimmy, and I am a retired police officer. I'm not going to tell you that there are no racists on the police department. I don't think blacks were historically treated fairly under the law. I think that we have made great progress, great strides. I think we have to continue to get better, but I also think we probably see racism to this day in places where it maybe isn't.
I sometimes wish I was a different race.
Bro, you peep, the white people, ain't no way to. As much as white people want to understand where we come from, ain't no white man gonna pretend to be black for a day. I guarantee you, you're not gonna find a white man that will sign up to be black, bro. You just not. And as far as the group of blacks, it's like, I mean, they're at a point in their life where, like, bro, being black is beautiful. Like, I've lasted this long. You know what I'm saying? I love the adversity that I've had to go through. It's helped me get to a certain point. It's helped me find myself. It's helped me find pride in being my color because of everything that our people has gone through. So I get that. I'm not surprised that the girl in the biracial group? Of course, bro. And I already know what the conversation is going to lead. It's going to be the fact that you're born from two opposite spectrums. You got a white, kind of like I was saying, you got a white and a black parent. And growing up, kids bully you. You never really quite find your clique. You never really quite find your setting. You're not really accepted. You're accepted by one group, but then everybody looks at you funny because your hair a little different. And it's like, shit, like, bro, I ain't have a choice in this. I ain't have a say. This is just who I am. But, you know, so like, I can't even blame her. So I think that's the reason why she's actually sitting down, because it's like, yo, all my life I've been white and black. And if I could just flip a coin and be one, I would.
I'd say not so much these days, but definitely 100% when I was a kid, I wish I was white. I grew up with my white mom. I didn't see my black side of my family after a certain point. I grew up in a small town. I was often the only student of color, definitely the only black kid. And I had this kinky hair. I couldn't figure out how to work with it. And everybody also would call me an Oreo. It was always just being othered. And so being a kid, you know, you just want to fit in. And for me, I wanted to be white. I just wanted to look like my mom, wanted the nice straight hair, and I just wanted to feel like included.
Yeah, I remember
it's crazy, bro.
In elementary school, like I was thinking, no man is ever gonna like me because I freaking look like this. And I just remember hating my hair because as soon as puberty hit, it was just, it just blew up, and people kept on asking, do you even need a pillow to sleep at night? I'm like, I can't stand these questions. I can't do this. I'm Jordan, and I am biracial. I think being biracial is definitely like living in the in-between, because culturally, yes, I grew up white, and I completely know that. Like, I was raised by my white mother.
This shit is interesting, man.
But then there's also a part where race is perceived, and it's what people put on you and how they respond to you in your everyday life.
It's so interesting because I grew up in predominantly non-Black communities, and for some reason still, like, being the minority at home in the family as well as in school and in the world, I was always so proud to be Black. I actually really yearned to be around other Black people. So thankfully in college, that was an experience where even though we made up a small community, I was still able to, okay, this is like people that look like me.
I was in the military for 6 years, And I was usually the only Jew in my battalion. And I think that isolation produced a sort of pride and understanding of who I am and where I come from. So
I have never wanted to be anything different than what I was, but that's because I really never thought about it. And to your all's point, maybe, I don't know, but maybe people treated you that way because there is this sense of wanting something that I haven't ever had before. I'd love to have a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? It's different than any other car I've ever had. It's different than what I grew up with.
I think personally for me, I mean, I was actually adopted by white parents and very diverse family. I think 6 out of the 8 of us are all adopted, all different races. I kind of have my own story apart from everyone else. And the same for everyone else that was adopted in my family. They have their own story. I always had pride in it, but at the same time, my parents are my parents no matter the color of their skin. It's the people who raised me, and they raised me just to not look at it through the lens of race, and that's what I've always done, and I've never wanted to change my race at all. I'm Joshua, and I'm black. I've never experienced racism. I've experienced stuff from people from my own race. I grew up in a white family by white parents. I was constantly called whitewashed. It upset me, but I didn't let it get to me. Being black in America, to me, is just being an American in America, just like any other person.
White privilege exists.
I need to see a unanimous 9-0 seats covered right now, bro. I need to see it. Now, it's going to be interesting if not everybody sits down. I'm pretty sure the black people are going to sit down for damn sure. The biracial, I believe they're going to sit down. It's the whites. I want to see how y'all think. How do y'all feel about y'all privilege? Can y'all see it? 9-0.
I mean, America was founded by white people, for white people at the time. All of the institutions were designed to
Founded by
benefit
white people? No.
So,
They're founded by the Indians.
Of course, white privilege lingers into society today. You can't deny that.
Where I would argue with you just a little bit is I think we throw out the term white privilege far too often for things that aren't necessarily white privilege.
I've got to agree with you completely on that one. I think there's generational white privilege for sure, but I think now it's almost used as a reason to not try as hard. If we stop doing that, just really like work for it and not use white privilege as an excuse, then we could really get somewhere as in the black community.
I would respectfully disagree. Like, all of that is true to an extent. Like, I graduated university during the pandemic, the height of it. I went abroad for university. I got 2 degrees. I graduated with honors. Learned to speak 2 languages. I should have been able to get a job right away, right? No. It took me 9 months before I was able to get a job. Had to go completely outside of my field. But then when I looked at all of my white colleagues who were in my program, all of them were hired immediately.
I need to introduce you to my daughter. She's white. Took her a long time.
And I'm not saying that. I'm saying
and
just
she didn't get her job in what her degree is in either.
I respect that.
The exception doesn't make the rule, Pops. It's hard sometimes for us to not take our own personal experience and use it as facts, but that's exactly what he's doing. Okay, your daughter, that situation happened to your daughter, but your daughter is like 0.0000001% of the population in which white people have more privileges than blacks. You know what I'm saying? But again, sometimes we often think that our personal views are facts, and it's like, no, bro, stop. The exception doesn't make the rule.
But my point is saying, me comparing myself to the white students who were directly in my position, they're successful, I'm not.
This country was
He
founded
ain't had no rebuttal for that.
upon white people coming and then putting in act Jim Crow and other laws saying that if you are not white, you are genetically inferior. You are not even a person. And some of those laws are still, and those systems are still in place today. 2 things can be true. You can have had a very hard time. Privilege is not just limited to white people, but to say white privilege doesn't exist from a historical context, to me, is respectfully absurd.
Something that I learned about recently
Disrespectfully
is,
absurd. The fuck you talking
privilege
about?
that exists in the medical field, specifically relating to the birthing process. in giving epidurals. There was a study that's recently, or was debunked, that said that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, which then has been falsely used by people who help support births in being hesitant to provide the epidurals for Black women giving birth. A lot of women die in childbirth. I don't know the exact statistics, so
Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related issues caused than white women. Multiple factors contribute to these disparities, such as variation in quality healthcare, underlying chronic conditions, structural racism, and implicit bias. That's fucking nuts, bro. That's fucking nuts. That we have women out here, Black women dying 3 times as much as white women. You know what I'm saying? During the process of giving birth and creating and continuing the generation of humans because of lack of health insurance or biasness because they're Black. Probably not offered the right medication, probably not put through the same protocols that their white counterparts are given. It's fucking nuts. 3 times as much. And this is why the system keeps breaking, because now we have kids growing up without mothers. Like, we already know fathers don't be in the picture for whatever reason, whether they die young or they're just not there. But now we got moms dying. Like, those natural caretakers, those nurturers are dying during the process of fucking birth. Imagine bringing your fucking child to this world, and that's the last day you see on this planet, bro. Wicked.
Times more likely Black women are to die.
thank you. The fact that I will be taken seriously, more seriously than a Black woman in my place if I should be giving birth at some point, I see that as just an absolute privilege. My name is Bryn, and I just graduated, and I'm currently gaining hours to becoming a licensed therapist. As a therapist in school, we were taught to approach things with what's called cultural humility. Cultural humility is being curious, and instead of trying to have all the answers, working collaboratively with the client to kind of understand where they're coming from.
I have been fetishized for my race.
Pretty for a Black girl. I know what that line is.
No. The
I know it's
standard
coming up.
one. Oh, you're pretty for a Black girl. I'm like,
Yo, I saw that coming from a mile away, bro. Yo, son, I saw that coming from a mile away, bro.
not a compliment. That's so weird to say. And like one of the go-to pickup lines for men, they're like, "Oh my God, what are you?" I'm like, this is not cute. I'm tired of having this conversation. This is lame. Yes, I know I have green eyes, hazel eyes. Like, let's move on.
I think Black women in particular are just extremely sexualized and fetishized. Every day I go out, I'm making sure that my outfit is, okay, because I don't want to draw certain attention. The way
Nothing
I
you could do
wear
about
my
that,
hair,
sweetheart.
If it's in an afro, if it's in puffs, if it's in braids, I'm going to get treated differently. Every single day something happens.
Yeah, I've had experiences in high school, college. People ask me to stop me, mainly women. Like, oh, are you Egyptian? Or are you Black in this or Black in that? There's always something. It's always Black in something else. And I'll let them know what I am, and they're like, oh, that's exotic or something crazy. My name is Dino, and I am biracial. I don't want people to think that I'm like split between being Black or white. I acknowledge that I'm mixed and I'm biracial, but for the most part growing up, I was always considered Black. I consider myself Black, my family did as well. So I don't think we should live in a colorblind society, but I also don't think we should stay stuck and feel like we can't move forward and still thrive and
Man, that shit ain't never gonna change, bro.
Our skin color and where we live.
That shit
in
ain't never
America.
gonna change. The reason that shit ain't never gonna change, because before people see your personality, they see you. You know what I'm saying? And if people see you and you look different than everybody else that they're accustomed to seeing within their proximity, whether it's their neighborhood, their schools, or their employment, they're always gonna fetishize you, bro. Like you're Black, but you look like you mixed with something. That's weird, because that's where the advantage of being biracial kicks in. Because it's like you have an element of both spectrums. You're not just straight Black. You know what I mean? We're never gonna get past that point, because people see what they're attracted to before they get to know the character, and unfortunately, that's what comes with being mixed.
I would just have a question for everyone who stepped forward. I'm just curious how that's like. What's it like?
Exhausting.
It sounds exhausting.
I think just being a woman, you know, we deal with certain things every day, specifically being a Black woman, being fetishized. It's interesting because if I, especially in my industry, because I'm there to work and be professional, I'm just super professional and I don't give any attention to that at all, that kind of energy, then I'm an angry Black woman. So I think that it's just really
Lose-lose.
You can't win.
it does feel like that. So yeah, that you can't win sometimes.
Yeah, and there's also a flip side to it. It's like, for me specifically, I'm light-skinned amongst majority dark-skinned people, and people will deem
You sound like one of the dudes from EYL. If you know, you know. But he do.
me or deem other light-skinned people as a certain way, as either weaker or less than, or just like, okay, you're lighter than, so we're going to be so pro-Black that we're never going to, consider you as one of us. You're just other.
We need reparations for the Black community.
I don't think people need like individualized like paychecks. Like I don't think that's gonna like work. But I think
I respectfully disagree.
pouring funds into communities who could really use it, building jobs there, more education there, like more opportunities would do so much. Like that's how I see it should be.
Anytime that Black communities in the U.S. tried to, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, they were attacked. Like, I think it was in Tulsa, they bombed the city. Black Wall Street, it was completely destroyed. So again, something needs to be done.
When the Civil War ended, there was a representative from Ohio, I can't remember his name, but he was a radical Republican and advocated for the phrase 40 acres and a mule for every emancipated slave. So there was supposed to be reparations, and there never was. And I think especially as a Jewish person, Jews received reparations for the Holocaust and are still receiving them. And in my mind, there's no amount of money that will ever undo the wrong of the Holocaust. So that all the money in the world will never make it right.
So you can only imagine slavery. You can only, you heard what I'm saying? In his mind, there's nothing you could do to overturn or pay out what Jews had to experience during the Holocaust, bro. So you can only imagine, and he's been given privileges or checks or whatever he's been given, reparations, right? You can only imagine the Black people, bro. You know what I'm saying? For us to have not gotten nothing, bro.
I think the idea and principle of reparations is good. Logistically, I don't know how it would happen.
Cut everybody a paycheck. Let's start there.
I just wanted to say the reason I stayed back was because I wasn't entirely sure what was meant by reparations, but your example of the Holocaust, I would say that I agree.
Similar reason, when I think of reparations, I think of something similar to a stimulus check. My worry is, with the lack of financial literacy, will we actually make strides?
No, that's a very valid point, bro. With the lack of financial literacy, AKA, Black people don't know what they're doing with their money. If you started cutting certain Black folks checks, what are we gonna do? We're already born in a society where we're not taught to value ourselves because heck, society doesn't value us. So what do you think we're gonna do with $3,000, $4,000 of reparation checks? We're gonna masquerade that and buy things that give us worth. We're gonna go and spend it on Gucci and Louis and BMWs. That's basically what she's saying. So we're gonna go backwards. So we're gonna get all this money for reparation just to give it back to the white man.
I would love the idea of investing money into programs in underserved communities, something like that. But I do have a fear that even if we did have the money, without that generational knowledge of how to take care of our finances, that it would just deplete and defeat the purpose.
But
that's a good point.
Even if that were to happen, though, I still think that would still be the right step. We'll give these people the funds or whatever. We'll give them our promise, and if they float or sink or whatever, that's on them. At least we as a country took the right step.
I'm all for money going to the community. I am for that because the communities right now are the way they are because of things in the past. But to give out checks to individual people, there's a difference between learning from the past and then still getting caught up in the past. If I had a time machine, I could go back in time and be like, hey, you never gave us the 40 acres and a mule. I would be all for that, and I would get on that for the people who were affected and actually went through slavery. But in today's age, like no one's experienced it and gone through it. Yes, the communities are taking hit by that, but so I mean, I've never.
It's a domino effect. Yeah, all right, bro. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, the discrimination and the racism that I go through is anywhere close to being a slave per se. But you could look at it as a system, because you handicapped our ancestors, our grandparents, our grandfathers, because you handicapped them without giving them the ability to read or write. That in essence created a domino effect that handicaps the next generation. You know what I'm saying? Why couldn't I be born in wealth? What if my grandparents weren't slaves? Maybe my grandparents could have owned, an oil factory. You know what I'm saying? Or he could have rediscovered something back in the days. But because he was handcuffed into being a slave, he didn't have those opportunities, and by therefore it created a generational generational path of struggle. You know what I'm saying? So even though I'm not going to sit here and compare anything I'm going through as being a slave, it's not to say, yo, bro, if my grandparents weren't involved in that shit, maybe I would have been, well off.
You don't think your ancestors experienced slavery?
I think they do, but I haven't. I've never been in it, so why should I get a check from somebody else who never put it? You should be going way back.
My problem with him, it's that old not every skin folk is kinfolk, and it's not even his fault, because I get what he's trying to say, but he ain't woken up to have this conversation. Because I'm just gonna say, man, the man got white parents, bro. He got white parents. He's articulating himself well. He's probably not from the same struggle that a lot of common minorities are placed, like growing up in the projects, growing up with no food to eat. That's probably what he's really missing. You know what I'm saying? He must have forgot those lonely ramen noodle nights where, damn, having to check would have went a long way towards filling up your belly. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like he's missing the link. There's a disconnect somewhere where he's just like, well, that was my ancestors. I shouldn't have been entitled to anything, any type of compensation, because that's what they went through. I didn't go through that. That's where he's coming from.
So what about the people who are the descendants of the slave owners, who are still reaping the financial benefits of your ancestors who slaved in those fields for literally generation after generation? You don't think that during that time, your great-grandfather could have been building a business that could be flourishing?
Yo, put me on the panel, man. I deserve a seat. Tell me she's not saying the same thing I just said, bruh. Damn, Gabos. You smart, bro. You smart.
Right now, and you would have a multi-million-dollar franchise as they do off the backs of others. You don't think that deserves some rectification?
That don't plague
for you
your
in the
mind?
present time?
To be honest, no, because it's something that happened in the past.
He's not ready for this conversation. That's all it is. Let's move on. All that she just articulated to him went right over that. You know what I'm saying? It went right over that, bro.
Again, I haven't experienced it. I'm doing fine right now. I'm doing fine, and I'm not going to be all upset over somebody else's ancestors who I don't even know who enslaved my ancestors. I don't need it. I have no reason to have it.
So for me personally, I'm not upset about it, but I do feel my grandfather, on his side, they were the first family in the state of Texas to actually file for reparations. And for me, I'm succeeding in spite of that. But to this gentleman's point, when the government says, hey, we're gonna do a thing, obviously the government in itself saw the weight and the air of the wrong, just as the German government did. I think if I want to buy 90 gold chains, that's my business. I think it would be unfortunate, but I think that if I'm entitled to something, I think it should be in the same fashion that the people of Jewish descent got it. I think it should be in the same fashion that the people that are Japanese descent got it. So you might think it doesn't affect you, but overall, I think that we have been greatly impacted by slavery, even up to current. I just choose not to focus on it nonstop so it doesn't become something that holds me back. But I definitely think it's something that we're entitled to.
Great, guys.
Yeah, and she put it on that homeboy kindly, because a lot of people would have ripped homeboy. Like, there was something about his energy where you could just, black folks know when there's a disconnect between a black brother who don't know the struggle, and it's because of their upbringing. You know what I'm saying? Because again, and this is why it's so hard being biracial, because it's like, why would I want my child, why would I want to experience my life with a partner that doesn't that doesn't understand where I come from? So then you put your child in a situation where they're mixed with two different races and they don't know where they fit in. So sometimes you have individuals who are, you know, adopted, possibly. He said he had like 2 white parents who don't know what it's like at all being black. Like, he's black, but his upbringing was not hungry. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't check to check. You heard him. He said he was fine, and he's disconnected himself from where he actually came from, because maybe he's actually convinced that those white people actually gave birth to him. No, they just took responsibility, you homeboy. The person that probably gave birth to you probably came from struggle. That's why you got white parents. You ever thought about it like that? But you know what? I'm not here to judge, because I thought this was a very healthy conversation, something that I could learn from and take something away. I hope you guys could take something away from just having more and more deep-rooted conversations where you learn about yourself and learn to start listening. You know what I'm saying? Listen to other people's stories, man. Whether they're white, black, tall, or small, everybody has a story. Everybody has a journey. We all come from somewhere. And like I always say, like, we're still equal. Even though our upbringings aren't the same, we're still human. And there's something beautiful in just watching people be able to connect on just a deeper scale and just talk about fucking life, bro. I want to hear your perspective being a white man, because I could tell you my perspective of being a black man is completely different from yours. And maybe we could find a common ground in terms of just finding peace, you know? But yeah, it's your boy Evan King, Gabos King. Rock with your boy, like, share, subscribe, hook a brother up or hold a brother down, because this is what I do. I'm just consistent. And yeah, like, I hope you guys learn something, man. You know what I mean? Because these conversations, they're hard to have in a life that's full of fast-paced motions, where we can never really sit down and really have a deep-rooted thought with a stranger. I think it's completely healthy to continue having conversations like that. So even if we're not a part of it, we still get to watch it and learn something from. But it's your boy, man. Representing that man, that black man, Beanhead from LA, RP Mamba. How'd I butcher that? Anyways, Mamba out.